I'm Charles Robinson. I'm here with Frank Schwab. Frank ended up writing about the Raiders and the Patriots. For those who have not seen what happened, it was a mildly interesting ending. I'm jumping right into this because it was really interesting. The Patriots obviously lose that game 30-24 on an inexplicable a lateral attempt by Jakobi Meyers. It was total madness. And my first thought was, God, I can't wait to remind Frank that Josh McDaniels just got a W over his former mentor, Bill Belichick. No, that actually wasn't my first thought.
What are you doing? They blew a 17-point lead again.
It wasn't my first thought. I ended up writing about the play. What my first thought was, what the living hell is Chandler Jones doing out in the middle of nowhere, guarding
I hadn't even thought of that.
Mac Jones?
Yeah.
Well, here's what happened.
Okay.
Interesting twist on that final play was that Chandler Jones had the tackle of Ramondre Stevenson. Chandler Jones had the tackle of Ramondre Stevenson at the line of scrimmage like 3 seconds after the snap, and he missed it. I mean, he had it. He hit Stevenson up high, fell off the tackle. Then a fat guard comes around and sits on top of him, plants him at the 48-yard line, 48-yard line of the Patriots, right?
Mm-hmm.
Play goes on, 9 seconds pass. Jakobi Meyers throws the ball back to Chandler Jones, who's standing at the 48-yard line of the New England Patriots, where he missed the tackle.
That's amazing. So it's a total fluke. It's total just a mistake that he's there.
He made a mistake that would have ended the game. Okay. He missed the tackle that would have ended the game, but it allowed all that to happen. And he was right there where he missed the tackle and he caught the interception. It was insane.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. The whole thing got lost.
Look again.
Yeah, you got to look. Amazing. If you look back at the start of the play,
I didn't even think about
it blows
why
your mind.
He was there. Like, I just figured, whatever, guys end up in certain spots. It reminds me of the old Phil Villapiano, the old Oakland Raiders linebacker, telling a story about the Immaculate Reception. He's basically talking about how Franco Harris was just so lazy on that play that he's just kind of walking and strolling along. And then the ball's just suddenly in his hands. Almost like that, where it's a total mistake that he's even there. But Chandler Jones makes that play. Real quick, because this was almost a what were you doing moment. You were watching this live, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
What was going through your head? I'll tell you real quick. Because when Ramondre flipped it back, I'm like, oh my God, that was crazy, but okay, at least the madness is done. Meyers is going to go down. And then Meyers starts running around, and I'm like, did I get it wrong? Are the Raiders winning this game? And then Meyers throws it back, and you just see Chandler Jones camped under it like a
standing there.
Oh my God, this is going to happen. And then Mac Jones gets stiff-armed into oblivion. Jones goes, I can't remember another play like that other than, I mean, just we've seen other plays. Miami Miracle, Kenny Drake, all that, blah, blah, blah. But not like this, where it's just a total, absolute meltdown of just one of the worst mental mistakes you'll see. What was your reaction? Just your reaction, just watching this unfold.
It was literally the broadcast was like coming out of my brain. Like I was,
right.
He threw it, and I'm like, what the? Like I literally, like I think I might even said it. I was sitting by myself, but I may have said that out loud because I couldn't believe that he was trying to throw it, kind of across the field again. And just the entire throw. And then when I saw Jones, it struck me in the moment. I was like, why is Chandler Jones out in the middle of the field, 15 yards away, 15 yards away? I'm like, he's 15 yards from the ball. And Mac Jones is next. I'm like, what is he doing? Like, it felt like the abyss. Like he was throwing this ball out, and there's all this field that should have probably had nobody in it. And there just happens to be Chandler Jones. Then he catches it, trucks Mac Jones, who looked like pissing down his leg that he's got to make the tackle,
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, all of a sudden Mac's like, great. Thanks, Jakobi. Appreciate it, buddy.
I couldn't believe it.
Unbelievable. And by the way, another dumb layer to this play was, what's going to happen to Mac Jones catch it? Like, even if you throw a perfect lateral to Mac Jones, you think Mac's going to run for 75 yards? Yeah. They can't get back a field goal range. The time's expired. No. Just an unbelievable play. And a few things real quick. We always praise, I do, I praise Bill Belichick for, hey, his teams never make the mental mistake. They're always game situation. They know this. And people, you could say as much as you want, well, that's not coaching. That's just Jakobi making a dumb play. Well, if we give Bill Belichick credit when his players make quote-unquote smart plays,
right,
we got to say, well, this is your team too, Bill. This was the dumbest play I've seen. I will say before this, the play that kind of gets overlooked now is the touchdown to Keelan Cole, I believe it was, where I don't know about you. I think I'm going crazy, though, because I saw his foot out. His toe was out. There's no question in my mind. And I'm like, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh, that stinks. That would have been such a great play. Yeah. Whatever, though. The Raiders going to crack at it. And then they're reviewing it for like 3 minutes. And I'm like, they're going to let this stand? And then they say afterwards, oh, there was no conclusive evidence. Whatever the call was on the field, we had to stick with. I'm like, no conclusive evidence? Are you serious?
So
I think everybody in the world saw his toe out on the white line.
It did look out to me, but here's the thing. And here's the only reason why I would give them any wiggle room. The angle of the camera, because it was looking down, it's possible that the depth perception, we're looking at a shoe, it's like the rounded top of the shoe, because of the angle, looks like it's out. And I think what complicated it was every other angle you looked at, I mean, you really couldn't see anything. And then when you looked at the top angle, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, it's definitely out. And then when they zoomed in on it, when they blew it up, I was like, I'm like, man, I don't know. Because just the way the camera was pointed, I'm like, maybe I would have overturned. Like, I was like, if they had overturned, I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. Like, I was a little more surprised that it stood. But I'm also shocked that those were all the best angles. There wasn't anything else.
I mean, that's the thing, Charles. Why are we sitting here in 2022 and all 31 stadiums are not equipped for every single angle? Like, this is not one of these unsolvable problems for the NFL. It's spend a little money on cameras. That's it. That's the solution to this stuff. Goal line camera, cameras along each sideline. This is not a multi-billion-dollar effort. This should be doable in 2022. The fact that they didn't have a better angle on that, it's honestly a bad look for the NFL. Like, how is that possible?
I'll say this though, like how often, be realistic here, how often have we ever seen a situation where there literally was no angle that isn't involved in like, a pile of guys and its bodies obscuring something?
Sure.
I would say it's about 98, 99% of the time. There's enough of, there's always some definitive angle where like, oh, there it is. There's we might look through five shots.
But this one might keep the Patriots out of the playoffs.
No, you're right. I get it.
Not to take them off the hook for what happened on the last play, but if Keelan Cole gets ruled out, the Patriots probably win that game. It's going to be tough for the Raiders to score there still. But one way or another, whatever you want to blame that call or you want to blame what happened on the last play, this could keep the Patriots out of the playoffs. And it's just unbelievable to me that this play happened. I guess Jakobi Meyers, I'll give him credit. He's stood up in the locker room, took all the heat, said, hey,
Stevenson too.
I mean,
both of them.
Yeah. I mean, they just screwed up, and that does happen. But this was a really bad play. And then the question came up. It came up in our work chat, came up on Twitter. I don't know if you wrote it all about this, but was this kind of the quote-unquote dumbest play in NFL history? And then we brought up the old Dwayne Rudd taking off his helmet. Right. Remember that one?
Chuck Pagano,
that obviously. Chuck Pagano, fake punt. I mean, but given the stakes, when it happened in the game, I mean, Jim Marshall ran the wrong way in the middle of the game. Right. Like, okay, well, that happens. This was the last play of the game when all you need to do is dig a hole and go to overtime, and they threw the game away.
Here's what I wrote was, it's going to take its place in the mix, okay? Because there's you get into this argument about what's the worst play ever. It's, some people are like, well, are the stakes big or small? Some people are going to say, look, Pete Carroll calling for a pass against the Patriots in the Super Bowl when it's a no-brainer to run it in with Marshawn Lynch is the single dumbest thing that's ever happened in the history of the league, because it literally cost the team a Super Bowl. And, but I think it's up there. I definitely think it's up there. But I think Pagano's is, I think that is literally the worst, because they practiced it. They planned.
I thought it was good.
They planned that. They actually planned that formation and then they attempted to execute it. I'm like, you had many layers here where you could have been like, this ain't gonna work. This is stupid. Like, this is a bad idea.
Days to think about this, maybe weeks. I don't know when they installed it.
Even like during the game, as you're watching it, you're like, you should probably call a timeout here.
Yeah,
like,
somebody's run on the field goal.
Something ain't working.
This can't happen.
This is not like. Well,
yeah, this was more of a spur of the moment. Look, Jakobi Meyers, not smartly, but he's trying to make a play.
Right.
Whatever. Yeah. So you're right about Pagano and that weird formation.
It happened in the heat of things. He said he was trying to be, hero and doing too much. And I'm like, okay, I can get that. It wasn't planned. It wasn't. Now you talk about Bill, and I give them credit because both of them said the same thing. Like, the play was designed to go to the like, you get tackled and we're just going to go to overtime. It wasn't designed to have laterals or anything else. Yeah. Stevenson made that really clear, took it on his own shoulders. And then Meyers said, Ramondre isn't even part of this. Like, once he gave me the ball, I got to get to the ground. Then it's on me. And I didn't. I made that decision. Don't blame it on him. I thought it was admirable the way that they both stepped up. I think it's a hurtful loss, but I also think this is a game too, and we'll move on. Matt Patricia is a terrible play caller. Okay, like, he is. If they can't run the ball, then they got nothing on offense. Like, it's Matt Patricia's so lucky that all this overshadowed the vast majority of that game. He is awful. And when I was watching it and hoping to write off of it, I'm thinking of like how much they miss Josh. I saw some comments of other players like leading into this week about what Josh brings to the table. And I don't know. I just like, it's unbelievable that he's their offensive play caller. And I don't know if it's Bill O'Brien or whoever, if they end up replacing him, but he's got to be
this again. Yeah.
He's got to be replaced.
And also, also takes off the hook, Charles. Josh McDaniels, who was about ready to blow his 5th double-digit halftime lead. No other team has done it more than 3 times. Hey, he was about ready to do number 5 before Jakobi Meyers.
He got like 4 wins in 5 games, man. He's riding the heater.
Come on. All right, we're moving on after that. This was, by the way, one of the craziest weeks of football I could remember.
Yeah, and unbelievable.
People say that. It's like, whatever.
Oh, it really was.
No, this one really was. A Sunday night game was really interesting, too. New York Giants 20, Washington Commanders 12. The Giants pretty much punch a playoff ticket with this. It's going to be hard for them to miss the playoffs now. A lot would have to go wrong for them. It's just a kind of a strange game. Neither team's very good, obviously. Came down to the end where Washington has a chance to score. Kayvon Thibodeau, who played unbelievably. Like, the Giants had to be doing backflips about drafting that guy 5th overall.
Yeah, he's
had
really
a great scoop and score in the first half. And they stopped Taylor Heineke at the 1-yard line. And, you knew that was going to cause some problems. Not in the way I expected, though. Brian Robinson scores, but Terry McLaurin, who looked like he said, am I good?
Yeah,
everybody does.
Yeah, see, I thought
we're recording this as he's talking in the locker room. I'm interested to see what he says after, because it looked like he got the okay.
I thought he pointed, yeah.
I thought he did too. If people don't know the mechanics of that, the receiver lines up, asks the side judge there, am I good? And he'll say yes. And it looked like he did that, but then he got called for illegal formation. The touchdown comes off the board. They move 5 yards back. They can't score. I'll say this, and I wrote this as the gamer, basically. We can say whatever we want about the Giants. Not as good as their record. Their advanced stats stink. They're hard to watch. Nobody wants to see them in a playoff game. Doesn't matter. They're 8-5-1. This is a franchise that's made the playoffs once in the last 10 seasons. Mm-hmm. They win 10 seasons, just made it once and lost that game. Great win for them. They go on the road and basically punch your playoff ticket. However you do it, I don't care. Pretty impressive.
4th down, game-ending play in the end zone. There was clearly pass interference. They talked about it, and they showed multiple angles. It was a lot of pass interference. Now, whatever, it's a blown call, okay? And there's still no guarantee if Robinson scores, or obviously you convert in that 4th and goal, that they get the 2-point conversion, they push it anyway. So, I mean, it's just, again, it could have been that officiating. Well, in the first 2 games we're talking about, there was a key moment where you're like, okay, a touchdown gets held up that looks like it might not have been a touchdown, and then pass interference that clearly looked like it was pass interference doesn't get called. It's odd. It was as great as the weekend was with football. There definitely were plenty of games that had calls where you're like, come on.
I mean, if Minnesota doesn't win that game, what are we leading off with? We're leading off with they got robbed of a win because of that call.
Yeah,
so
because of the
you're
return
right. Yeah, the officiating it was not the best we got.
Just real quick to hit on the Giants. Again, Saquon it looked to me, again, they just look like a different offense when Saquon is producing.
Yeah.
Now, defensively, the strength of that team is the same as it was when it started out. And they went on that run, and I'm like, man, I don't know what to like about this. Well, actually, the defensive line. I like the defensive line a lot.
Yeah.
I think what's different is Thibodeau is really coming on. Like, he's coming on like a freight train all of a sudden the last, the back half of the season. So it's, they are what they are. I expect that, they're not going to, I would be surprised if they go in the playoffs and they beat a team. But I think mentally,
unless they get the Buccaneers somehow.
Yeah. I mean, man, good Lord. But again, I think you can see where they invested, and it continues to be extremely interesting to me what they're going to do with some of these decisions with Daniel Jones, what they're going to do with Saquon Barkley, how they're going to get rid of Kenny Golladay. I mean, there's a lot of heavy lifting to do in that franchise yet. So, but I kind of feel the same way about them as I felt about the Jets when I felt like the Jets had it, we're going to get into the playoffs. I'm like, you get in the playoffs because it just changes the culture and the mentality in the room.
I agree.
And I think that's
guys buy into what Daboll's selling.
Yeah.
I totally agree. It's a good thing. I don't care. Everybody's going to complain, oh, the Giants are in the playoffs. We got to watch them on Saturday afternoon. Who cares? They're in the playoffs. If they don't screw it all up at the last 3 weeks, which is possible, I guess. And that's a step for them, especially with a first-year head coach, no doubt.
And as you said, it was an interesting weekend. This game, this was the most unbelievable. I mean, the Minnesota Vikings beat Indianapolis 39-36 in overtime, trailing 33-0 at halftime. Look like they are just buried. Like, it is as buried and over. We're all firing off jokes in the first half about. I made the joke about, man, they're really coming from behind seriously this game. It was like a million. You could have said anything. You could have had the worst take on earth and you were fine because they're like 10 million of the worst takes on earth. And then the second half, inexplicably, now granted, Indianapolis is not a good team. Okay. Jonathan Taylor goes down. Not a good team. Matt Ryan really can't hold leads.
Oh my God,
but
Matt Ryan. Oh.
I will say this though, seriously, I don't know what it is about Minnesota. I have no clue. I can't say, well, it's just this belief in Kirk. Most of the time you'd attribute this to like a quarterback. You'd be like, well, they just believe. Right. It's like Joe Burrow. They just believe Joe Burrow's never out of it. Whatever. I don't know if that's the case here or whatever, but for them to go on a 39-3 run it was ungodly. I couldn't, and I watched.
There's a reason it's never happened. It's almost impossible to come back from that.
Frank, did you watch? I bailed at halftime. I was like, oh, this. I'm like, this game's. I'm like, what a terrible game.
For a little bit, I was watching on my phone. I was like,
then I watched on my phone and listened on the radio.
Justin Jefferson scored for my fantasy team. Salvaged it. Then it's kind of like, after a while, you're like, you start doing the math. You're like, they're not totally out of this thing. Just crazy. I will say this, by the way. One of my most fun things to do is go on Twitter and say something along the lines of, you know what? Kirk Cousins doesn't actually suck, because everybody loses their mind. Kirk Cousins has like 7 come from behind wins this year, and he played awesome in this game. He really did. Like, what if you hate Kirk Cousins that much that you can't give him credit? Whatever. But you put something like that on Twitter, and you'll get all these replies. What are you talking about? Kirk Cousins is the worst quarterback in the world.
Hey,
One guy actually went. What's up?
Sometimes you say Josh McDaniels isn't the worst coach in the world, and people go crazy. So don't take yourself out of that category of people.
But with Kirk, I was like, he's got like 7 come from behind wins, and this guy was like, literally with everyone was like, this team choked, this team choked, this team choked. I'm like, that's the luckiest quarterback in the world. Kirk Cousins played great in this game. What great in the first half, but whatever. You come from 33 zip down, you played well, and there's something about this Vikings team. It's a weird season.
It's weird.
They're obviously not 11-3 quality, but they keep winning games. They do have a belief. They don't really. I wouldn't want to. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but at the same time, you can't count them out of any game. It's a really strange season they're having, and this was hopefully as strange as it's going to get, because I can't imagine getting weirder than this one.
They have and this is important. Like, first off, I sat there and I'm like, they still fell behind 33-0 to the freaking Colts. I'm like, come on, man. I was like,
it's like people who want Dan Campbell to be coach of the year. It's like, well, Dan Campbell was their coach when they were 1-6.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that. Okay. Anyway, go on.
I got to retort to that when we get to the Lions, actually, because you were in my mind, boy. And I went and I looked at that. Anyway, we'll get to that. But they do have a trait that they're earning right now that I think is important. Whether I think the defense it is what I don't think it's good defense. I don't. I think sometimes they make plays here and there, but it's just not a very good defense. I think offensively, if Hawkinson is actually catching the ball, playing well, between him, Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, that last touchdown, the screen to Dalvin Cook, I mean, it was amazing. It was an unbelievable play, probably one of the best plays he's ever made in his career in the NFL. And but I think the trait that they're earning right now is like legitimately, after a while, teams really start to believe like, yeah, we can overcome anything coming back. It doesn't matter. Yeah. And literally,
I agree.
You just overcame the biggest deficit in NFL history. So, and by the way, somebody tweeted it out and I said, I just commented, I said, I quote tweeted just as delicious that it was Jeff Saturday. Frank Reich obviously brought the Bills back, right? The 32 points. Now, the
Oilers.
Yeah, he loses that distinction. But sweetly, he loses it because the guy who replaced him with the Colts just completely melted down in the second half of this game.
God, yeah.
Poor Matt Ryan, man, by the way.
The Colts poor Matt Ryan. The Colts are having a weird season, too. Like, the whole all 5 games of Jeff Saturday have been weird in one way or another, and this one was really, really weird. But yeah, good. Hats off to the Vikings. Heck of a comeback, heck of a game. Then let's move on, because the last game on Saturday, very big for playoff stuff. Yeah. Maybe big for MVP. I want to talk about that just real quick. Buffalo Bills 32, Miami Dolphins 29. I thought Josh Allen was awesome in this game. Like he did put him on his back. I came out of this game, it's the Dolphins' 3rd straight loss. They're not good, obviously, but I just feel the Dolphins come out of this game feeling okay. You're like, you know what? We lost last second field goal to maybe the best team in football, snowing. We're fine. We're going to be fine going forward. I think the Dolphins come out of this game with more confidence. They had the last 2 games in California where they were terrible. What do you let's say, because this is now on the table, there's only 3 games left. Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills run the table. Josh Allen plays well, mistake-free ball. MVP? Like, can he get back in this race, or is it too late for him?
No, I mean, I think he can. I thought Hurts today, throwing from the pocket, and some people kind of clowned me about that when I said like, hey, he's not a completed product throwing from the pocket, even though everybody wants to say he is. When you talk to people in the league, they will still tell you, like, if you are trying to put him in a position where he's going to be less successful, it's just always keep him in the pocket. Maybe now he could beat you from the pocket. There's no question about that. Mm-hmm. But he can also make mistakes from the pocket, and he's probably going to make far more mistakes from the pocket than he is on, sight adjustments, moving with the ball, off schedule stuff, off script stuff. He's murderous. And so I still think, like, is Hurts in that conversation? Yes. Is Mahomes obviously in that conversation? Yes. Do I think Allen's in that conversation? Yes. And this game, actually, I'm with you. I have not changed my thought process on this. I hate that he has so much of the offense that has to function through him. Now, that said, I was with you. I watched the game, and the conviction he had running it at times, and honestly putting himself in physical jeopardy.
I know. I hate it, man.
But I was like,
he's a competitor.
Okay, like, I get it. This is like when Lamar's really got it going, and you're like, and you watch him, and you're like, oh my God, like he will literally do anything to make sure they win this game. Or Mahomes that trait.
He has plenty of over my dead body games.
Yeah, he does.
Our great friend Therese, this was one of them too, where he was just like, we ain't losing this game. I'm going to figure out a way. It wasn't always pretty, but I mean, it's snowing. There's a lot going against the Bills in that game. It looked like they're going to lose, and Allen just dragged them back. I mean, if he could play like if you could just cut out the bad interceptions, man, he's fun. I think this team can win a Super Bowl. I do think they're going to have to win their last 3 games. Like, I think they need the number 1 seed. I don't think they want to go back to Arrowhead.
I agree.
If they could get to January and be like, you know what, guys, we got 2 home wins at a Super Bowl, I think they do it. But I think they need the number 1 seed. I really do. Not impossible. Not impossible they go win at Arrowhead. They did earlier in regular season, but I think this is the team that needs a 1 seed. And to do that, to ensure it, you got to win your last 3 games. But I think Josh Allen might make that happen.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Swinging ahead, the Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Dallas Cowboys 40-30.
What a game this was.
Yeah.
Like, the fact we're talking about this game 5th just tells you how crazy it is.
40-34 in overtime. Trevor Lawrence, I thought about you this whole game because I was just like, man, Trevor Lawrence he has now had more moments. They're starting to stack up. Like, you can see the momentum with him really starting to build where you're like, oh yeah, okay. Like this feels like it's kind of starting to fall in place for him. He might not do it every single week, but you're seeing it enough now that you're sort of expecting it. And then when he doesn't do it, you're like, oh, well, that's a disappointment. Huge game in this one. Leads them. I mean, leads the comeback, forces it to overtime, makes big throws the entire game. Obviously, Dak Prescott gets intercepted in overtime, gets returned for a touchdown. That ends the game. And I'm sure this is going to be the week where everybody once again piles on Dak. It's like, oh, Dak's the liability. And we're going to go through that whole thing again. Look, I think Dallas,
whatever.
This is a game. This is score in terms of your defense, not great. But I think they're going to be fine. I'm more focused on like Jacksonville, where I'm like, like, okay, what if the Jaguars now win out? Like, what? Like, the Jaguars are going to go to the playoffs.
I don't even really need to win out. We'll get to Tennessee in a second. Real quick, I let off winners and losers with Trevor Lawrence, and me, I don't get too excited about anything, Charles. I don't go crazy about anything. But I will say this, and I don't think you're going to disagree with me. I thought this was basically the game where move along the velvet rope, let Trevor in. He's a superstar. This guy is a top 10 quarterback, man. I look, last 7 games, 14 touchdowns, 1 interception.
He's been really good. Yeah.
He came back against the Ravens, went on the road and beat the Titans, a game that's going to be really, really big here coming up when we talk playoffs. And then today, my opinion of the Dallas Cowboys has not changed from what it was a few hours ago before this game kicked off. I think our Super Bowl contender. I think they got a great defense. I think today they just got beat by a quarterback who's going to be putting the fear of God in everybody for a while. Trevor Lawrence was awesome in this game. Like, this was the Trevor Lawrence moment. I felt, again, I know I overreact, so bear with me here. I thought this was the moment that Trevor Lawrence arrived. I thought this was an absolute big moment for the Jacksonville franchise that we're going to look back on and say, remember when they came back, beat the Cowboys in overtime? And it's a big moment for the NFL, too. We need star quarterbacks. We need them. And I think Trevor Lawrence, the way he's played the last 7 weeks, I've been on Trevor Lawrence, too, about the ups and the downs and, what are we getting, trick or treat Trevor? I think he's beyond that now. I think now if he has a bad game, it's going to be really disappointing. Like, we thought we were beyond this. I think he's arrived. I think that this is Trevor Lawrence going forward. And I mean, the fact is, when the Dallas Cowboys couldn't pick up the first down after Trevor fumbled, and you thought, even in this loss, this is going to be the story. He still played really well. Once Dallas, and they kind of mismanaged the clock too, by the way. Once they punted it back, as soon as they punted it back, you're like, Trevor Lawrence is going to find a way to tie this game at least, maybe win it. Like, that's who he is right now. And I thought, when I had that thought in my head, and I'm sure Dallas had that thought in their head, it was like, this is Trevor now. He's a star. I think he's in that elite level of quarterback now. I do. I think that's where he's going forward.
He had some definitely like sit up in your chair throws in this one, where I was just some brilliant, beautiful throws. And I wouldn't put him, like, when I think of superstars, I think Mahomes, I think Josh Allen.
It depends how many. Like how many would you put in that group?
Superstars.
If you're putting 10 in that
3
group,
or 4.
Trevor's in there. I think.
No. I think I'm talking about
your elite, like
unbelievable. The guys who have even separated.
No, he's not there yet.
Yeah, but I would put him in like the category. Like Hurts has done a lot this year. I would still put Hurts ahead of him in terms of development, but I'm like, okay, I can see where that guy, we know where Hurts is going. I can see where Lawrence is going now. Like, I would put him in that category of, okay, these are the guys that are going to fill out, the top 10, and then they're going to shuffle around in it, and 1 or 2 of them is going to turn into a Mahomes or a Josh Allen or whatever.
Right. Like put it this way. If I told you in the next 3-4 years Trevor Lawrence is going to win an MVP, you'd be like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. I don't have
I
a
mean, if
problem
I
with
told you Kirk Cousins was, you'd be like, no, that ain't
No,
gonna
right,
happen.
yeah.
Derek Carr, no, that ain't gonna happen. But he's in that group of like, yeah, I can see that happening. I can see him
Hurts,
being having a top 3 quarterback year any of these years coming up.
Yeah, Hurts, Lawrence, Allen. Allen has one.
Herbert, obviously, Burrow.
Burrow.
Those kind
Yeah,
guys.
those
like,
guys. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he might not be in that top 3 or 4 tier that you're talking about, but he can get there. He can. You could see it, man. It's exciting. It's some, like you said, some of these throws, you're like, whoa, oh my goodness. Not many guys on the planet can make that play. I thought it was just an awesome result for them. It probably knocks Cowboys out of the NFC East, but I didn't really think they were going to win that anyway. I still think the Cowboys are a really good team, really good defense that just went up against a buzzsaw quarterback who's riding a hot streak right now. So not really a result I'm like going to freak out about the Cowboys with. I just thought this was really good for the Jaguars. Real quick, by the way, let's do the math. Tennessee fell today, 4th straight loss.
Yeah.
They're 7-7. Jacksonville 6-8. Jacksonville has a win over them. Remember, one last week at Tennessee. That's huge. They meet again in week 18. If the Jacksonville Jaguars could just stay within a game of the Titans going into that game, that's going to be your AFC South championship game. And for the Jaguars have made up 3 games in 4 weeks now, and I think Jaguars win that division. The Titans are going. We'll talk about the Titans. They're going the opposite way, and the Jaguars they must be feeling great about themselves going forward.
I mean, you can see where the momentum is, right? I mean, there's no question you can see the momentum.
No doubt.
I'm with you on Dallas. Like, I actually think it's probably good to see their defense get smacked in the mouth this as you're kind of getting up close to the playoffs. I really do, because I'm just like,
I can say that
they need something to, adjust it a little bit and be like, hey, okay, we're great, but like there's still problems here. There's still things to work out.
Remember when Trevor put up 4 touchdowns and 40 points on us?
Yeah, it gives you, I think they need some more coal in the furnace, and this will give them some. So I don't think it's it doesn't change at all what I think about it. Let's jump to Cincinnati. You and I were texting about this game, about how weird it is, hard to kind of sometimes figure out who Cincinnati is, because at times they look brilliant, and we're just like, oh my God, they're in this groove. And then they can go through stretches in games where you're like, what the hell is going on? We were texting about that during this game, and I asked you, I'm like, is this pinky? Joe Burrow's pinky. It looked like the nail got ripped off.
Yeah.
They ultimately beat Tampa 34-23 in a game where Tom Brady was horrible, just terrible. Like, I mean, the turnovers were
terrible.
It was the when he went to hand off to Fournette and the ball just popped out of his hand. I mean, it was just like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
There's no way Tampa was going to be able to survive those turnovers. They were up by 17 points. I think Tom Brady, I think I saw Rick Stroud tweeted out that he was like 89-0, I think, somewhere in that range. He'd never lost a game when he was up by 17 points. Well,
really? Wow.
Yeah, now he has. But anyway, I think the thing is with Cincinnati, you can see pretty quickly, they can put their foot on the gas pedal really fast and change a game pretty quickly. The turnovers helped, but they executed off of the turnovers as well. That's really important.
And they caused those turnovers, a lot of them too.
Yeah, that's fair.
The defense played really well. Yeah, the Bucs start off the second half and they try to run this fake punt to Gio Bernard that just is an absolute disaster.
Do you think he even knew it was coming?
They said Gio was really salty with the media. Jenna Lane over at ESPN posted the video. Go watch it. Gio is so salty with the media. He does not want to talk about it. But I guess they said everybody knew he just missed a snap. And I guess it was just a fiasco of a play, though. And so that's how their first series goes. They turn it over on their next 4 series, which you don't see an NFL team do very often. The Cincinnati rolled off 34 straight points in this game. And it's just one of those things where I think we all just have this in the back of our minds, even if we've given up on the Bucs, like I kind of have, of, well, maybe if the Bucs can just get it going a little bit. And you thought, like, when they're up 17, I'm like, all right, they're at least playing well against a good Bengals team. And then it's just, my goodness, they're bad. Carolina blew a really big opportunity today. I mean, by losing the Steelers. We'll talk about them in a second, because Tampa Bay is trying to give this playoff spot away.
They really
don't want to. It doesn't even look like they want to be in the playoffs. Their body language is bad. It's just every time they show the sideline, everybody seems to be like, ugh, what are we even doing here? It's a bad football team right now, a legitimately bad football team. And we kind of got thrown off the scent a little bit because of the comeback wins. But it really doesn't change that this is one of the worst teams of football right now. They really, truly are. I mean, the second half, go back and watch. It's just bad for them. I just, and I don't see them. They're not taking out of this. This is who they are. Probably going to host a playoff game. Probably going to get the brakes beat off of them too. And that's going to be, I guess, the end of Tom Brady's career. I don't know what he does after this, but a lot of changes coming in store for the Bucs. It is just a bad football team.
They lost me against the Niners. Like it just. I was just like, nah, man, forget it. Like there's just no way. Like it's just they'll have moments here and there, but at the balance of the season, they've shown us who they are at this point. And there's just, I think what bothers me at times, when I watched this game, it was funny because at one point, I can't remember exactly what Tony Romo said, but he was kind of talking up Tom Brady in his throws. And Tom skipped a horrible ball at Mike Evans right as Tony was like praising him for being able to make all these throws. and literally happened right as he was saying it. And you could tell Tony was like, oh, like I was like literally saying, and he threw a horrible worm burner right in front of.
Yeah. I think at one point Tony said something to like, well, Tom Brady has no help. It's like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Have you heard of it? Rashad White, Leonard Fournette. I get it, the line, whatever. But I'm just saying, like, Tony made a lot of excuses for Brady today.
Yeah, because they're boys, that's why. He's, he probably didn't lose any crypto, so.
Oh, Charles. Oh, my goodness. On that note, let's move on to the next game because I want to get your thoughts on future coach of the year, Dan Campbell, I guess. Detroit wins 20-17. Big win for the Lions. Huge. And in this game, like you would have thought, like we're talking about how Zach Wilson stunk. He really didn't. Played fine. He made great play to Uzama, I think it was, for the touchdown. He kept them in this game, but the defense of all things lets the Jets down 4th and inches. Brock Wright takes that thing 51 yards. That's the turning point in the game. The Lions, man, 7-7. I didn't think it was possible for them to make the playoffs, but now I kind of do. Their schedule's not that bad the rest of the year. This was the key game for them. If they could have gotten over the hump here, all of a sudden you're looking ahead saying, yep, the path is there for the Lions to make the playoffs. So very impressive. Very, very big win for them.
It's funny because this, the Jets real quick, watching the Jets, and I was thinking maybe I'll write about Zach Wilson if it just reverts back to horrific Zach Wilson. He wasn't horrific in this game. He had a couple plays here and there. He had some really bad plays too. Some really
the one
bad.
Interception was awful.
Yeah. He's good Lord. He's had some horrible plays. Yeah. He also had a couple throws where I'm like, God, that's why this guy's enticing. He just had a couple like those that's wrist flicks, and the ball goes like 35, 40 yards, and you're like, dude, how that's not. He didn't have to load up. He just like flicked it, and it was insane. You can see it's the worst, man. That really is like. It's like being in a, dating someone who just is an awful person to you 95% of the time. And every once in a while, they give you that 5% where they're nice. And you're like, maybe I'll stick it out. This is 100% that situation. Anyway, the Lions, Charles McDonald, for Verts, he wrote, obviously, this past week, he made a case for Dan Campbell, coach of the year. I went back just because you and I had talked about it. About the start, about, hey, the 1-6, sure. He was there for that. You got to hold that against him too. Here's the thing about the 1-6 though. Let's go back and look at that. They lost to Philly in the opener, 38-35. Philly turned out pretty damn good team.
They're okay, right? Yeah, I haven't really kept track of their season. I think they're okay.
Philly's pretty decent. Okay. They lost to the Minnesota Vikings 28-24. They were in that whole game, just like the Philly game. Vikings.
I will say Dan Campbell will admit he blew that game.
Okay,
trying the field.
Fair enough, but but that's Vikings, pretty good team, right?
Sure.
At that time, I'm just saying at the time that these were piling up, we didn't fully know what their schedule looked like early. Like we're thinking, yeah,
you're right. You're right.
Okay, so then they lose to Seattle 48-45. Okay, now Seattle, I'm like, this is a dog piss team. Like, what are we doing? There's a horrible Seattle, and then. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, well, man, now Seattle, it turns out, is actually competitive, and Geno Smith's actually a decent quarterback.
Pre-Germany, Seattle, pretty good football team.
Yeah, again, another situation where when you look back, it's weird. The horrible game was when they lost to the Patriots 29-0. I mean, that was just...
What happened to them for these two? They had two games back to back.
It was the New England game.
Oh, okay, the Lions are done. Yep. You don't got to worry about them anymore.
It was the New England game. Lost 29-0. They had week 6 bye. Then they lost to Dallas 24-6. Really bad. I mean, it's just,
But it happens. Dallas, good team.
Yeah, three really bad losses. And then they lost to Miami 31-27.
Another good team. Sure.
So, and their only other loss on the schedule was Buffalo, which
in the
Dan
final
Campbell
seconds.
kind of screwed that up a little bit toward the end too, but Buffalo was really fortunate to win that game. When I go back and I look at that 1-6, I'm like,
oh yeah, okay, that's compelling.
It's not as bad as I thought it was.
Right.
They were way more competitive with really good teams that I just didn't know were good at the time. And now they've kind of gotten over this hump where they can beat average teams. And now they can beat some teams that have, I would say the Vikings have a playoff offense. I'd say the Jets have a playoff defense. Now they can beat teams that are kind of half built to win a playoff game. I look, man, I've had this conversation with you for going on 2 years now where I'm just like, oh, rah, rah. And then Hard Knocks. I'm like, oh yeah. And then they start bad. And I'm like, oh no, why did I get on that bandwagon? That was so stupid. I can't deny that, to go on the run that they've gone on, to see the confidence that they have right now, that he has clearly built something there. And the front office, I murdered Jared Goff. Now I'm kind of like, man, I don't know, man. They're surrounding him with enough talent that he's all of a sudden he's like a middle of the road functional quarterback, which is okay. I don't know, man. I don't know what to say other than
real quick on Coach of the Year, though. My only thought really on that is, and I get you make good points.
I'm making an argument for votes, not that he wins it, but like vote that, like, hey, when you stack it up, could he be a guy who wins some votes? Maybe, sure.
Yeah. But I respect Charles McDonald's work too. But I think the one point in this is, I don't know how you vote him over a guy like Sirianni, who didn't lose to bad.
That's fair.
Totally Kevin O'Connell's probably a better comp because it's in the same division.
That's fair.
And it's like, just Kevin O'Connell's been good all season. We're winning games all season. If you want to hold the advanced stats against him, I think that's a little weird. But so I think Campbell's, he's done a great job. He saved when they were 1-6. I was like, I think we talked about it. I don't know this guy's going to survive to next year. If they go 2-15, 3-14, because it looked like that was on the table for the Lions for a while. Well, it turns out, like you said, all the teams that beat them are pretty good. Right. Except, I guess, the Patriots aren't even awful. They were a playoff team up until Jakobi Meyers lost his mind. So none of their losses are really that bad.
Their last 5 games, they beat the Giants 31-18. It's going to be a playoff team.
Yeah.
They narrowly lost to Buffalo on Thanksgiving in a game that they absolutely...
And Buffalo could win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely could have won. They beat the living hell out of Jacksonville 40-14.
Yeah,
the Jacksonville team that we like so much, they beat the...
And basically every other game for Jacksonville the last 4 weeks has been great.
Right.
Yeah, so it's not like,
They beat the hell out of Minnesota 34-23.
Sure did.
And now they beat the Jets on the road. I'm like,
and the Jets are a playoff.
The last 5 games, I'm like, I don't know.
Man, what's up with the Lions' schedule?
It was
like
bad.
The toughest schedule I've ever heard. Have they gotten any easy games?
Seriously, when you look at it top to bottom, I'm like, this schedule is horrible. It's like one of the worst schedules in the league.
No, but it's just an awesome story. It really, truly is. I'm happy for Lions fans. I'm happy for the Lions. I like when they're good. I want to see them in the playoffs. I really do, and I think they're going to make it. And now that they got this Jets win, I think they're in line to make it.
All right. Well, you can get Frank on Twitter at Yahoo Schwab. You can get me at Charles Robinson. You can get Brett Rader at Brett Rader. Be sure to check out the mothership at Yahoo Sports. And as always, help us keep Therese Paler's legacy alive by visiting Breaking Tea. That's capitalT.com/Therese for the all juice tea or hoodie. Remember that proceeds from those purchases go to support the Therese Paler Scholarship at Howard University. You can donate directly to that scholarship as well as the scholarship in Therese's name at Power Mizzou by checking out our podcast description. That will get you where you need to be when you want to send some money. And we really appreciate that. Remember, please, if you can, leave 5-star reviews, tell a friend, help us grow the pod, help us keep that pod rating up. It's very important to us. And I will be back on Wednesday with a new episode. Talk to you then. Peace.